You get icons in the
Frankly, considering how much work has taken us to get to this point, I celebrate this as a victory. Put this awful screen there for a second.
I got pretty.
Whenever you're ready, you've been here, you know the drill. I'll do my lunch or spiel and then hand it off to you whenever you're ready.
All right. Okay, a little bit of icon.
Yeah, you know, that's considering where we were 10 minutes ago. This is great.
I'm learning how to use a projector.
Yeah, it turns out here we are at the Tech Hub, and that projector hates Linux.
I think it works at 1024 by 768.
Yeah, it's very weird, and I ran into this because I'm running Linux, but that most of our speakers are still not on Windows, and it's only come up again now because, of course, Linux uses Linux. You ready to go?
Yep.
Alrighty. Are you good as you'll be, Nate?
Good as I'm gonna get.
That's fine. We do have the live stream too. It came in, so we've got our kind of stuff. We do this for no money, people, so you get what you get. All right, welcome everyone and anybody tuning in online to the latest monthly installment of the EFF Austin Meetup. My name is Kevin Welch. I'm the current president of the board at EFF Austin. Most of you I've seen before, but for the few who are new, welcome. So if you're like, what is EFF Austin? Well, you might guess from the name, we are an Austin-based digital civil liberties organization. We're closely affiliated with Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is based out of San Francisco. They're the nation's oldest and largest digital civil liberties advocacy group. You can kind of think of them as the ACLU for the internet. They work to protect your rights in emerging technological spaces, especially the First Amendment right to free speech and expression and your implicit Fourth Amendment right to privacy. Yeah, and you know, those are rights that are under threat more than ever, and so, you know, definitely if you got any spare cash, give them money, because they got a lot of battles they're fighting right now. Good people. But yeah, they also run what's called the EFA, or the Electronic Frontier Alliance, which is a network of about 100 sort of peer-to-peer activist groups based all over the United States. EFF Austin is the oldest member of that group, because we were very much tied up in the history of the founding of the EFF. And for a long time, we were the only one of those 100 groups, not just in Austin, but all of Texas, but we also now have another member of the EFA here in Austin, Open Austin, who are the descendants of Code for America's Code Brigade. So yeah, they're awesome people too. I encourage you to check out their meetups, which happen periodically. You can check them out on Meetup and stuff. But anyway, yeah, EFF, and by extension us, we work and advocate on issues like net neutrality, end-to-end encryption, protecting Section 230 of the CDA, and just, you know, trying to be civically engaged as nerds. Main thing we do here is education. We have meetups currently the second Tuesday of every month here at 7 p.m. at Capitol Factory. You can look on our website, Meetup, Mastodon, Blue Sky, technically still X, Twitter, Facebook, and other places if you want to learn more. Yeah, so we do these second Tuesday every month. If you know somebody who might give an interesting, good talk, we're always looking for speakers, so please throw them at me. In addition to that, we usually throw a few annual parties, a holiday party and a cyberpunk themed South by Southwest party. We actually just had that recently, thanks to our board member Heather, who just donated her South Austin event space for the effort. We had a lot of fun people out at that. Corey Doctoros and engineers from the Signal Foundation, our speaker tonight, Lewis, and Evan Pedroma, one of the co-inventors of the Activity Pub protocol. So a lot of cool people. And then also we do legislative advocacy. We've been involved in efforts at both the city and state. We were very involved in the fight around automated license plate readers in Austin. We got much stronger data retention rules than would have been present if we'd not been involved in those efforts. We've also been involved in discussions recently about the city and state around AI regulation. Some good proposals, some not so good proposals, but been actively involved there. If this all sounds interesting to you, we encourage you to get involved because, as I said, we make up for not a large budget compared to the national EFF with with Chutzpah and brains. So what we do is really nothing stopping you from joining us and making it happen. So we'd love to have you. Anyway, I think that is my little spiel of stuff. You know, and also just prep, next month we should be looking forward to a meetup talk from Manton Reese, the creator of Micro.blog, talking to us about its place in the metaverse and the future of the project. So that should be pretty cool. And I think tentatively in June we're going to be having a discussion about phone privacy and security from our board member Nate, so stay tuned for that one. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our speaker this month. I will quickly introduce him. I imagine, given the nature of this room, probably many people already know our speaker, but I'll go ahead and give him a quick little intro. Our speaker this month is Louis Rossman. Louis is the owner of Rossman Repair Group, which is an Austin-based repair shop that offers various device repair and data recovery solutions. But in addition to his company, he's also a prominent right to repair activist who has successfully lobbied for the passage of right to repair legislation in multiple U.S. states. He also, the way many of you may know him, he also runs a very popular YouTube channel, Rossman Group, with over 2 million subscribers and thousands of videos on device repair, right to repair, and other topics. As I alluded to, Louis already gave us a little kind of rally the troops talk at our little South by gathering. But you know, after all these years, even though we've been big believers and boosters in right to repair, despite literally at this point over 100 meetups over the years, we've actually not had a dedicated talk yet about the topic of right to repair. And it'd be better to give us one than Louis. So, yeah, right to repair. You know, it's an important topic. And Louis will have a lot more to say about me, but I'm just saying, like, we live in a world now where thanks to software locks in the law, you can literally become a criminal trying to have control over your own device, even to do lawful things with it. All it requires a manufacturer to do is put an arbitrary digital lock that doesn't do anything except mean you broke the law if you tried to tamper with it in any way. If you think this sounds like bullshit and a way that companies can price gouge and control you and do who knows what, even collaborate with their friends in government to mandate who knows what. If you think this all sounds very bad, well, I think we and Louis agree with you, and Louis has, I think, some thoughts about what we might do about this problem. So without further ado, I will let Louis, in his unique and interesting way, take it away.
I think that's where sound comes from. It's supposed to come out of here, the knob we adjusted.
Are you not getting sound? We'll check it. So what's up?
There it is.
Oh,
Turn it all the way.
all the way up.
Okay.
Alright.
Careful, that's, yeah.
I did promise Louis we'd be able to play his videos, so.
Hopefully it will. Alright, so this all started for me with a bad day watching a cheesy movie. This was in 2012. It's this movie called Lord of War. It's about running guns through all these different countries. How the United States and how this one guy, played by Nicolas Cage, managed to be one of the largest gun traffickers in the entire world. And while I'm watching this movie, my date looks at me and says, "This sounds like how you get parts." And it never really occurred to me that as a nerd, it should not be this difficult to get the parts that we do. In 2018, there was a story in The Information, and it was going over how people were building secret tunnels in Foxconn and Quanta to try and sneak out different pieces of the devices that we work on. So what Apple will do is they'll take a device, let's say they have a board that doesn't work. Oftentimes they won't refurbish it. That board will actually just ground down for the individual bare metals. And people that thought this was a waste, go into the recycling bin, take it out. They actually made tunnels for this. There was and around 2016 and 2017, you were no longer able to actually get a donor board that was broken. You could only buy pieces of it. So I would buy it and I get like a wing, a breast, a thigh. They were very small, and I didn't understand why this was. And I finally asked my supplier one day, why is it that I'm only getting a quarter of the motherboard? And they said, well, they started checking people more, so what they do is they put it inside their underwear now, and they sneak it out that way. At which point I washed my hands to the point where it looked like Aladdin's remote. So I never touched these boards without gloves ever again. This is a very difficult thing to solve because it's getting more and more difficult to actually go through this. They're getting better security, so like around the garbage can, and they are petty enough that in order to avoid us being able to get access to a single chip, they will have security stand by a recycling bin of shit that they're going to grind up and throw away so that we can't get it. Because you can't go to mouser.com or digikey.com to get a chip for any of these things. You're ripping open an iPhone 10R extended battery case to buy the charging chip in there that matches the charging chip inside the phone. So when it comes to any sort of activism or trying to get anything done, the number one rule that I've learned is who is the joke, making sure the right person is the joke. This happens a lot with activists, and it's why many people hate them. It's because when you're trying to get somebody to do something, you can't tell them something like, well, why did you get your old one fixed? You realize that's bad for the environment. If you had fixed that, that would have been one more device that would have been able to work. You can't talk down to people, and a lot of the times, instead of motivate people by how something will help them, people try to motivate them by saying why they should do something. Nobody likes being told why they should do something. So in the beginning, I had this three-pronged approach of, let's make this entertaining. Let's make it something where if you watch this, instead of spending $2,000, I'll show you how to spend $50, and let's also go over how if you wanted to turn this into a business and have your own little data recovery boutique shop, you can, because most people don't care about an issue unless it affects them personally. And if that's an easier way for me to get you to care about the thing I care about, then I have no problem going for it. An example of this is probably not the best, but it's just because it's topical in the news recently, the difference between making somebody getting somebody in on the joke versus making somebody the joke with our favorite bean car manufacturer. This is making somebody in on the joke. This is making somebody the joke. Ironically, with the one on the right, if you could tell from the trim on the little pieces for the autopilot sensors that this is actually from 2018. So the person that had that written on their car actually has probably had coal rolled on them at least 20 times by 450 diesels going by. And the only thing more annoying than having coal rolled on you 5 times a month is when you're also considered the most evil, racking, decent person in the world. This doesn't work. What you want to do is you always want to make your adversary the joke, because not only does this avoid you being in a situation where the people you want to agree with you hate you, it also makes it fun. So this is the first one. This is Sarah Faye Pierce. She is an AHAM lobbyist. It's appliance something or other, and they are a lobbyist for the let's say your dryer, your washer, your microwave, anybody who's making stuff like that. And this was, let's see if it'll actually play my video.
I'm appearing today on behalf of the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. LS67 comes into conflict with important industry tenants engaged, and you're conducting a repair to a microwave, for example. There's a part that's called the magnetometer, and if it's not replaced properly, it could explode.
One of my fans pointed out that super mag clip. I really like it. So how many people here know what a magnetometer is? Raise your hand if you do. Anybody? Okay, halfway, so I can't say it over. It doesn't exist. It's not a real part. It's called a magnetron.
You're not the first time you did that line. I've fallen for it.
No, so if you raise your hand, you're an AHAM lobbyist. So a magnetron is a magnet. Have you ever seen a magnet explode before? It doesn't. She made that up. It doesn't exist. So I decided to ask during the Senate hearing. I said, "What is a magnetometer? Can you tell me?" And she just. It doesn't exist. Now, I did not tell anybody to go and harass this person. I didn't say be mean to this person or anything like that. However, when it comes to the internet, the thing that you're supposed to do is you're not supposed to ask for what you want. You're supposed to be wrong and wait for people to correct you. Or in this case, I can't tell you that you should care about my cause, because you're never going to care about it, especially if I tell you to. What I can do is I can show you somebody being wrong, and then, well, let the problem eventually solve itself. And this is how I get people excited about it. It's not by telling you should care about this. It's by showing you the sheer amount of stupid stuff that happens behind the scenes so that you're not allowed to get a part to fix your own dryer.
I'm appearing today on behalf of the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers. LS67.
Okay. Joke number 2, Samantha Kersel, TechNet lobbyist for Apple and HP. They represent Samsung and a few others as well. They were lobbying against this right to repair bill in 2020, talking about how this is a problem that doesn't exist. This is an excellent opportunity to make somebody the joke. Come on, little cell phone internet, you can do it.
This legislation isn't.
There you go. Play out of there. Here we go. Yeah, try it.
In search of a problem that does not exist. This is legislation in search of a problem.
And there's 2 main pieces of criticism that I wanted to address while I was here today.
The first is that this bill is a solution in search of a problem, that there isn't a problem. This means that rather than paying me to fix the machine or anybody else, your only option is to go to Apple and have this $3,000 or $4,000 device fixed by them for $1,500. Further, when they do that, they erase all of your data, and that's the only option. So when people say that this bill is a solution in search of a problem, I've had thousands of customers that want their data back that disagree.
Legislation isn't.
I have not used Twitter since 2019. I deleted my account before it was cool. I believe this is a case of this year. She said this is a problem that does not exist in 2020. In 2016, as you can see, because this is Facebook, there's a 3 dots, so you can't read the rest of it. But I'm experiencing phone issues. The phone is on, but the screen is blank. I've tried everything. It's time for, and the ... was to figure out how to get my stuff off this phone. If it's a problem that doesn't...
leopard's eating face. That's like laying down, putting your face in the leopard's mouth.
I'm not telling you that you should care about this issue, because again, you're not. Why? But if I make it something entertaining, and I can turn it into a little wrestling match of some sort, then it's fun. And here, I'm not lying. This is on your public Twitter. It's very easy to find that you actually had an issue where you needed the data off of your device. And people started to offer her advice on Twitter.
Legislation is in search of a problem.
Oh no. So remember, this problem does not exist. And somebody offered her a solution. If this rights to repair bill is passed, then you can get it fixed. I was live streaming, so she was getting she was actually checking her phone and watching all this stuff in real time, which made it incredibly humorous. As you can see, this was a hearing in 2020. She joined in 2022 because she deleted her Twitter for 2 years from people just consistently sending this. Again, I am not telling anybody to harass anybody. I'm simply playing your own words and then putting them on screen as you're lying at a seminar. And the internet does what it does. She quit working for TechNet and now lobbies for somebody else. And if you take a look at the LinkedIn, it was actually like a month after. One of the things that I find is very useful here is, this is something that people were not doing before, is simply attaching somebody's name to what they said. The first one of these hearings that I went to in 2015, I went to my local politician's office in New York. He's like a 79 or 80-year-old state assembly person. He doesn't really understand technology. And I showed up with a motherboard. I said, when I attach this wire, the person gets their data back. When I take it off, it doesn't. Everything used to come with this document inside of it that showed you how everything was connected, and you can't get that anymore. If somebody from the company shares it with me, they can get in trouble and actually go to prison for it. So this is something that allows me to hire people who are high school dropouts, give them living wages, and give back customers what it is that Apple would never give them, data recovery. They don't offer this as a service. So if you have a phone, you drop it in the toilet, and you're something like that, if you're at the beach, you lose it. Even if you said, I have $100,000, give me back my stuff, because I thought the sync to iCloud and it didn't the last few stuff. You can't. So this gets people to find it fun. Joke number 3, Kerry Godolphin. She was the assistant chief counsel at NHTSA, and after this rights to repair bill passed in 2020 in Massachusetts, she was asked to testify in court to talk about whether or not this was legal, what the issues would be. She ignored it for 3 years. One day after the judge says that you're allowed at this point to, you're allowed to move forward, automotive manufacturers can follow the bill. She sends a letter to all of them saying that this is unsafe and this will give you access to vehicle telematics and it's very bad for security and that you should ignore it. And again, this is, there's quite a bit that she wrote here in this opinion. The serious safety risk posed by this law, blah, 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 blah. Kerry E. Kodosic. It takes very little effort to take a look on her LinkedIn and see she spent 6 years working at Meyer Brown, which was the law firm that was against the bill, and spent several $1 million lobbying against that particular bill. Again, I am not here to tell you what to think or what to do. However, after pointing this out, within 3 days, she changed her mind and said, never mind, you can listen to that bill. Pointing out that she spent 6 years working for the very firm lobbying against this bill, while she is the regulator in charge of choosing whether or not this bill is listened to, after 2 years of ignoring it in court, has a way of making problems work themselves out. You always want to make sure that your adversary is the joke, not the people that you are trying to convince to your cause. And frankly, it's just energy. Understanding your audience is the next one. So we're going to talk about the chair of the committee of the next place that I spoke at that year. So you always want to understand the person you're talking to. It doesn't work if I just try to convince you of something and I'm trying to tell you why you should care. I should understand who you are first, so that I can explain something to you that is actually going to be according to what you're interested in. A lot of salespeople try this thing with hard sales. It's, here's why you should care about this. So look at all these different features, but you may not care about any of those things. It's my job to figure out what those are. The second is that you should never accept the premise of assholes. You should always examine whether your adversary lives up to the standard that they are holding you to. And if they don't, take that sword that they're pointing at you and shove it up their ass. We're going to show you this in the video coming up. So the first one is understanding your audience. Let's go over that. So the chair of this committee, Paul Feeney, on Facebook, which is a very quick Google search, the first thing is, I saw that he was talking about the television show 24. I know a lot of people that care about civil liberties may not like the fact that this show came out that made you... I rooted for civil liberties to get destroyed in the show. You would have the guy from the ACLU walk in, and he's like, you're not allowed to catch a terrorist. And Jack Bauer would come and just smash him in the back of the head with a hammer, and then some kid would wind up getting saved. It was a very good show during the, that started right around the time of the Iraq War, that was really designed to get you to just root for the Patriot Act. But he loves this particular program, and he watches it on a regular basis. I also saw that one of the profile pics was a bald eagle, and in the recent years that tends to mean, you know, like patriotism, freedom, blah, blah, blah. So after understanding this, here is the testimony that I wound up giving. It was something that was tailored to these particular individuals. And the concept of not accepting the premise of assholes is something that you have to do on the fly. So you have to be listening to what people are saying and really trying to find places where you can use it. So this is with a lobbyist named Christina Fisher. She worked for TechNet, and similar to Samantha Kersel that I went over before, very shortly after this video, she quit and went to work somewhere else.
We're here in opposition to the rent-to-repair bills, but the reality is that some of the people that you're hearing from today greatly seek to profit off of this legislation. This legislation has been filed in over 21 states, and no state has passed this legislation, and that's for a reason.
Before I get started, I think it's important to address a point that Mrs. Fisher just brought up, which is that there are many people that are seeking to profit from this legislation, and I agree that it's an important point. I think it's important to look at who paid to be here today versus who is being paid to be here today. Now you have to see how it is today, where if you have a MacBook Air and the SMC chip that reads your battery and can tell what your battery percentage dies, I can't replace that chip easily because it has firmware on it. If I tried to read that firmware, the chip will stop working. It's very similar to this TV show called 24, where Jack Bauer would interrogate terrorists, and if the terrorist where's the bomb? The terrorist would take a cyanide pill and go, you're never going to find out. The chip does that. It erases itself. And the last excuse that I heard was, this has been denied in every state. Why Boston? Why Massachusetts? Wouldn't that have been a great attitude to have 250 years ago? That's it.
Thank you for your Thank you for your testimony. Any questions from the members?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. Although I think Chloe would have been able to help Jack Bauer figure anything out.
That didn't win that year, but he did put it up for a vote for the first time in 4 years, and stop ignoring it. It's trying to figure out what makes somebody tick. What buttons can I push? And making it according to them rather than me. It shouldn't be about me. It has to be about them. And again, not accepting the premise of assholes. That woman made over $300,000 a year to lie to people, and she's telling me, after I spent $500 of my own money to travel there, that I profit off this? Fuck you. No, that's not how this works. You always want to make sure that your adversary is the joke, not you. The audience has to be in on the joke, but they can't be the joke.
We're here in opposition.
Now, this is the saying that right to repair is based on. If you can't fix it, you don't own it. And in recent years, what I've noticed is that with a lot of the theme of what I've been talking about, is it really just kind of has turned into, you don't own it. Let's give some examples of this. So, this is the definition of the word ownership in the dictionary. To acquire in exchange for payment in money or an equivalent. To buy. The action of obtaining something in exchange for payment in money or an equivalent. Buying, now the equivalent sense. This has been defined since 1325. Let's read Sony's definition of this. Sony, on their website in December 2023, I think it was PlayStation Network, where you can buy, the word is used purchase, different television shows, different movies, not stream, not rent. It uses the word purchase in large letters. And they wrote this. As of December 31st, 2023, due to our content licensing arrangements with content providers, you will no longer be able to watch any of your previously purchased Discovery content, and the content will be removed from your video library. We sincerely thank you for your continued support. Thank you, PlayStation Store. No refund, no credit, just like. Now, if you read through their end user license agreement and you read through it, I tried to shrink the font enough that it would show up on screen, but it doesn't because this projector only works at 1024 by 720. This is a very, very small portion of the items that they removed from people's libraries. Now let's take a look at their terms. Use of the terms own, ownership, purchase, sale, sold, sell, rent, or buy in this agreement or in connection with PSN content does not mean or imply any transfer of ownership of any content, data, or software, or any intellectual property rights from SIA. Now, if they were saying if they were saying authorship, that would make sense. I cannot say that I made this. They put the word own in quotes, ownership, purchase. They're trying to redefine a word that has meant something from the fucking 14th century. On page 27 out of 34 of any end-user license agreement, when you go to purchase a movie.
Well, it's a symbolic link. They're just pointing it to rent now.
Here's another word that used to mean something. Lifetime. That's word. Lifetime. 14th century. The duration of a person's or animal's life. The period of time over which a person's life extends. Frequently and I can't read that, I went to New York City Public School. Phrase in during. Next. This is a vital source textbook. I'm old enough to be missing a good portion of my hair and also to have bought my college textbooks as books, but now many courses make you buy them online. There's no paper version of it. So you can pay, $10 to $24. Okay, you can read that, you're better than me. $62 for half a year. You can pay about $84 for a year, or the lifetime license, which thank God I did this, I was anticipating this project. $109 if you want the lifetime license. Now, what do you think lifetime means in this case? If you had to guess, how long is lifetime?
4 years.
Forever. Close.
Whenever they feel like some random number changes.
Correct. That is actually written into the terms of service. When you take a look, products labeled as, I am so glad I anticipated this projector. Products labeled as lifetime typically mean 5 years of online access and permanent downloads to a supported device. Typically. And the reason this came up is because somebody's textbook went bad after 4 months after they paid for a lifetime license. Not 5 years, because it's not insulting enough that you took something that's supposed to mean lifetime and you turned it to 5 years. Typically. Which gives them an out to say, well, typically this, but not really. When purchasing a digital product, you can download it for use on a supported device, the 2 most recent versions of an operating system. So permanent downloads for the 2 most recent versions. Downloads will function so long as VitalSource supports the device. This means that if a device or operating system loses compatibility with VitalSource products due to updates or obsolescence, your download product may no longer work as intended. So typically 5 years. Even if they do decide to give you 5 years, that is then, well, you have to have their particular product, their version, or obsolescence with no actual definition.
I don't think they have enough of a creative writer to use permanent the way they're using that word.
The reason that they have to write this is because there was a law that was passed in California that says if you use the word lifetime and you don't mean the word lifetime, you're breaking the law. So and unfortunately with how poorly this is enforced, you have to click a link all the way on the bottom of the page. It's like somewhere on, okay, this, over here. Digital product disclosure. That's what it says. Digital product disclosure. That doesn't say that lifetime means something else. You have to actually know to click on that in order to see that. And sadly, this apparently is legal. You have to click on another link, and then you can see that lifetime doesn't mean lifetime, but it ain't even on the product page. Another example. This person paid for a lifetime license on a media player. This is a music player. It has ads in it. If you pay, you get rid of the ads, and then 2 months later, ads in the media player. If you pay us every month, though, we promise we're not going to put ads back. Books from Amazon. So this is the crazy part, because there are authors that are not releasing paper copies of their books. They're releasing it on Amazon because that's the largest platform where people are going to be buying. Starting February 26, 2025, the download and transfer via USB option will no longer be available. You can still send Kindle books to your Wi-Fi enabled devices by selecting the deliver or move from device option, which means that it's going to connect to the cloud every single time you want to load one of your books. Even if you downloaded it, it's like with YouTube, if you use the YouTube Premium app and you hit download, after 30 days, it's like if the content creator has deleted their video, it's not going to show up on your phone. Which means that they have the ability to remotely edit books that you're reading. And you may think, when's that going to happen? Here. So there was a book from Roald Dahl. They replaced Fat with Enormous. They replaced Cloudmen and James and the Giant Peach with Cloud People. The Eats They Want to Die was removed. like a lot of different changes. And the point here is that when I decided to look at the list of changes, it was 53 pages in my browser, and that's not on 1024 by 728. $400 baby monitor. So this is a baby monitor that is supposed to be able to give you an idea of how your child is breathing, to figure out if your child is stressed, maybe if the room quality is not very good. It's also supposed to give an idea of pulse and things like that without actually having to be a mask or something that's over the kid's face, which may make it worth $400 instead of the $20 walkie-talkie thing you get for most normal baby monitors. You get sleep tracking, analytics, environment sensors, all this kind of stuff. It's a smart baby monitor. And this live breathing and sleep tracking are available with the Meetup membership. If you've paid $400 for a product that has these features, and now you have to pay an additional $5 or $10 or $20 a month, this is the problem with most modern stuff, is that it's cloud connected, which means that when this company got purchased by somebody else, they said, yeah, about that lifetime thing, never mind, and it went away. One of my favorites is a Roku television update. So we've made an important update. Do you notice a word that's missing over here? There's usually a word under this. Like, everybody is forced to stay in this room tonight. Agree? Fucking agree?
Remind me later.
We've updated our dispute resolution terms. Select agree to agree to these updated terms and to continue enjoying our products and services. Press star to view these updated terms. Now, how do I go down to change my HDMI port or watch something that I want to watch on my television or play a game? You agree? Agree? Agree. Now, why do you think they did this? Get a guess. Because it's not illegal. Close. Oh. Any guesses? Any guesses? Why would they send this out to every television? Data breach. This happened. This is the Office of the Maine Attorney General. This was a data breach affecting. It's 5 digits. I can't read. 15,000 people. Bro, what glasses are you?
Outdated ones. I was going to say only 15,000. 15,000. My data breaches these days.
Maybe 19 or 18. Dear Roku user, we take our viewers' privacy and security very seriously. And as part of our commitment to those values and protecting your information, we are ready to notify you about a recent event that may have affected your Roku account. This letter describes the event, our response, and the resources available to you to help protect your account information. What happened? Suspicious activity, so on and so forth, and a bunch of people's private data got leaked. You should freeze your credit over this. They give you all the instructions on how to freeze your credit because they screwed up that bad. So your TV was held hostage unless you hit agree. Another one. So this is a Rivian. They make a popular electric truck. And I found this recently very interesting. Large plus path unlocking next. Yes, that is next on the roadmap. So if you buy the truck, you are given this much lithium-ion battery. You're able to use this much lithium-ion battery. But if you pay us, you'll get to use the entire thing. Now the argument here is that they're giving, well, that makes it cheaper to manufacture. And the biggest argument I've heard in favor of stuff like this, well, you did not pay for that battery. So one of the counter arguments that I have to this, what do you think would happen if you walked into Rivian or Tesla and you walked right up to Elon and said, may I have 500 pounds of rare earth minerals for free? Can you also throw in a BMS with that? And I want to make sure that you give me the old Samsung 35E cells, not that cheap shit. What do you think they're going to say? His receptionist is going to be hitting a little red button under his desk called security before you can finish the sentence. Because multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies do not give people 500 pounds of rare earth resources for free. Why does it continue to get worse? Ego boost. Instead of saying, that company screwed me, it's very easy to say, well, I mean, listen, you should have done your research. I look things up before I buy my phone or car. What are you, an idiot? People like getting this little quick dopamine boost from feeling like I made the right decision. I bought the right thing. I chose the right bank. I chose the right textbook. If you had thought and done things just like me, then maybe things would have gone better. And you can see this on website forums, YouTube comments, and even I hear some of this in the real world. Not in the same incredibly condescending way, but oh yeah, that's why I got this thing. You should consider this thing. Instead of, that's that kind of stuff. I'm sorry that happened. And actually pushing back against the person that did it. And also lack of awareness. For the last 20 years, there's one person that's actually talked about this, Cory Doctorow, and in 2004, most people just say, you're crazy. When is this ever going to become a problem? Some examples of it. So, iPhone owners say the latest iOS update is resurfacing deleted news. And you'll hear, you idiot, why'd you buy an Apple? Android gives you freedom. Samsung deleted old ads where they were mocking Apple removing the headphone jack. Whoops. Cadillac Lyric owner has been waiting 9 months for a bumper replacement video. Why would you buy an electric car, you moron? Don't you know that they're hard to repair? F-150, repair costs are out of control, $5,600 for some tail lamps, because those tail lamps have some sensors on them for the rear camera to be able to beep at you when something's happening. Also, they have the LED tail lights. They have these assemblies for them where it comes with the LED driver and everything else rather than just a bulb or the individual LED strip. So you wind up paying over $5,000 because some water got into your tail lamp. Everybody laughs when it happens to somebody else. They stop laughing when it happens to them.
But it's not happening in a void. These companies with millions of dollars are kind of directing people to blame each other. They have that sort of push. It's not us just like, oh, you're dumb. It's, something in your ear from a multi-billion-dollar company kind of convincing you to blame yourself, to blame other people.
I think people should, think a little before you have to use it as an excuse to make fun of somebody else. I like that people don't trust these companies the same way that they used to. Like when I started, people would say, like people who came to my store would say, Apple said if somebody says they could fix a board, that they were scamming you or lying. And then 10 or 15 years later, the idea that the genius car knows what they're doing has become a meme. But I want to see this become, I want to see that kind of trust in these companies get eroded.
Exactly. Before you blame someone else for not knowing that, you have to think that a marketing company paid a lot of people to phrase this in the most confusing possible way, and what chance did that individual, they just read the contract, versus these people, it's their entire job to make it confusing.
Yeah, this is why I don't like when people punch down and say, you're an idiot for buying this product, instead of saying, oh wow, you got screw for it, or screw Cadillac for doing this.
There's also certain product sectors you literally, even if you're smart, can't buy your way out of the problem. There is no modern car that does not spy on you. There is no brand you can buy that does not spy on you. And while the Linux Foundation is working on a version of Linux for car and firmware, that's like 5 years away, best case scenario.
It is almost impossible. How many people here have been to a public bathroom where you see a beautiful soap dispenser and then you see some like soft soap thing that they bought right next door in front of you that's filled with water? I mean, this is because I didn't even learn this until a few weeks ago, but apparently the bags that they have in these soap dispensers have planned out. Every single time they come up with a new one, they stop selling the bag to the old one. There's not a lot of, and the amount of research that you would have to do to never get screwed by any of these things, it would mean that you would not be able to live a normal life. Ooh, this is a fun one. Okay, so one of my favorites here. So before that right to repair bill passed in Massachusetts, that Kerry Kadoji was saying none of the auto manufacturers should follow, because if you do, your car is going to get hacked, all these horrible things are going to happen. This commercial was airing all throughout Massachusetts. The major automakers, Toyota, Honda, General Motors, Ford, and one other that I forget, I'll remember later, spent $25 million combined for this to play nonstop during this ballot initiative. Let's see. Here we go. Ready? Ready to be scared? Freaking music.
If question 1 passes in Massachusetts, anyone could access the most personal data stored in your vehicle. Domestic violence advocates say a sexual predator could use the data to stalk their victims, pinpoint exactly where you are, whether you are alone, even take control of your vehicle. Vote no on 1. Keep your data safe.
Well, thank God they can't do that with any other things, like smart thermostats, stalkerware apps.
This goes back to the whole idea of accepting the premise of assets. So that is the standard you are holding independent repair people to, or independent mechanics, that we're going to steal your data and use it to stop. Well, yeah. Let's see what they do. This is part of a 54 or 58 page document from the Attorney General in Texas. The FTC has looked into this as well, and they are suing General Motors as well as several other major automakers for tens of billions of dollars, because from 2015 to mid-2024, they were using the information about how you drive, they were collecting that information, they were selling it to LexisNexis, and then LexisNexis would sell it to insurance companies. There was a large story in the New York Times that broke several months after the FTC started looking into this, where this guy buys a Chevy Bolt. Right after he gets it, he has to accelerate very quickly because somebody behind him is doing something stupid, and he gets his insurance hiked by about $200. And they said they're not very good at figuring out if you're a good driver from the computer yet. For instance, when Tesla Full Self-Driving first came out, anytime you hit the brake, that was considered hard braking. You had to use the regenerative braking of the car. So it almost turned driving into a video game, because back then, in order to get into Tesla's full self-driving program, you needed to have no marks on your record. You needed a 100 out of 100 score. If you hit the brake, bad score. So what does that mean? Oh crap, that car in front, oh my god, is the regenerative braking gonna get there in time? It became a video game in almost a sense of gambling, because these systems are so bad that you would have to go out of your way to drive horribly to conform to those systems. Most people don't do that. If the person in front of me is drunk and he's kind of doing this, I'm gonna slow down a little bit, which means tapping my brakes. And the system would see that as hard braking. There was an entire web of this, and none of this was disclosed to the customer. So General Motors, as well as many other major automakers, were selling cars that were consistently spying on you and tracking every single one of your movements, when you made a sharp turn, where you made the sharp turn. If people were driving at night, they knew that, and this information would be used to raise people's insurance rates. General Motors generated billions upon billions of dollars from LexisNexis, who then generated billions of dollars from Geico and every major insurance company. And you're telling me that we're the ones who are going to stop people by fixing their car. So, in conclusion, I find that activism that works is trying to get people personally invested. Here's how you can push back against people that want to control everything in your life. Here's how you can save money doing this. Here's how you can have fun doing this. And above all, let's make all these people the joke. Because when you do, you get some, you move things forward, and admittedly, it just keeps everything much more fun. That's about it.
Entertaining and not too long talk. Some of our speakers don't understand that. Who's got some questions for us? I would love to kick it off.
I tried to keep it concise. I didn't just write it in my car.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's almost like you made a lot of videos and talked to a lot of people with it or something. So yeah, it was, I'm going to tee you up, and you can choose to talk about it as much or not as you want. What are you working on now as far as right to repair?
Well, right now, the right to repair is kind of under this whole idea of right to own, which is you should be able to do what you want with what you bought and paid for. So if somebody disables that baby monitor, I should be able to find somebody who can hack into that baby monitor so I can still use what I bought and paid for. And there's a law called Section 1201 of the DMCA that says if you break a digital lock, you can go to prison for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that thing I alluded to when I teed you off.
Yeah, so my next project is going to be trying to revoke that entirely. It's like a 4 to 6 year project.
Well, I wish you luck, and certainly anybody in the room who would like to collaborate with Lewis on that should probably talk to him, because, you know, there's going to be a lot of powerful people who won't like what he's trying to do there. Hollywood's going to hate it very soon.
Some powerful people that want to see me win.
Yeah, that too.
The problem is the underlying problem. No matter how secure you want to be, if the data exists and is collected, it can be, there's a way. So like ultimately, like your car's collecting the data, it's there. Your smart devices. The only way to really reduce this is to, you know, just say no to having every device you own be in the cloud, or to give people, like you made the point earlier, there's no disagree button. It's getting to a point where people physically cannot buy new up-to-date objects that do not include this data collection element, and the only thing to change that would be a mass push by consumers to not have every single option be collecting data, and that would take so much more, or it would take, you know, the right to repair community like going full Luddite and being like, we're gonna repair all this old stuff, because it's just otherwise, if every device on the market is collecting data, I don't care what you're doing, the data exists, it can be leaked, it can be used.
I mean, your broad point is well taken and correct. This is the point I kept trying to get our city council to understand with the automated license plate readers, where I was just like, it doesn't matter ultimately at the end of the day how secure you try to secure this data you're collecting, it exists. Once it exists, it is a risk. It is like toxic sewage.
Yeah.
You don't want the risk, you can't collect it in the first place.
I like that terminology though, that criticism.
Yeah, you would have hoped. Most of them know. Even though I literally pointed out that the UK's ALPR database had been hacked in 2021, and all, like 20 million drivers, full driving habits sold on the dark web. These are not hypothetical risks. They did not care. Well, most of the council did not care. A few of them cared.
Anything with voice, you know, but the DNA link for people are like, hey, I want to know what percentage of everything I am, and I'm like, well, no, that data's online, you can't change it. Congratulations, you're snitching on your cousin with a crime scene investigation, fine, DNA is connected to you. If the data exists and is an immutable part of your physical existence, then like, good luck with that.
We should do my little pet peeve talk on the push to have everything be biometrics. Like, oh yes, that's a great secure thing.
Yeah, yeah, let's use immutable characteristics and like,
Who's got some more questions for Liz? Yeah.
So I'm concerned about where to go after anti-circumvention because I work code in the emulator space, and anti-circumvention, first off, is it puts a lot of our otherwise lawful work in a legal gray area when we're like reverse engineering. But after that, on the civil side of the docket, you have what happens if companies decide to change their strategy and follow, say, Nintendo with a strongly worded letter to an open source project alleging copyright infringement of what you find behind that digital lock is enough to can that project indefinitely.
Are you saying a case where they claim that either their code or their intellectual property is their code is copyrighted, or?
In that case, it was a private key for cryptography was copyrighted.
But Haier tried to do that with air conditioners. They were claiming that they tried to use a DMCA takedown because they found the open key to their API. That their API was similar to the United States nuclear codes between 1963 and 1978. Anybody remember what those are? Oh, it's a bunch of zeros in an order. Yeah, for like 15 years, the U.S. nuclear codes were literally just a bunch of zeros because they thought.
Oh yeah, that's right.
For
I
readiness
remember
purposes.
this. Well, that won't be a problem. It's not like they one time dropped a nuke on North Carolina and never found it. That happened.
One time? I don't know enough to know if they would try to use copyright for that, or if they would say that. Usually those arguments, at least in schematics, those arguments lose. So there are people that have tried to do this BS where they would draw like a person or like some funny cartoon inside the schematic so that it could be considered a creative work rather than just a diagram. The court is just giving a big middle finger to that in many cases. But yeah, I would want an exemption to 1201 for everything, or just like not there, like not the small things where it's excluded for this type of repair and it's excluded for 1 year here. It's just, in my opinion, it should just be gone. It shouldn't exist. And I know that's not going to solve the problem that she was talking about, where your car is collecting everything from you. But Aaron and I know people that we know somebody that spends 12 hours a day trying to figure out a way to make a programming language that runs on the computer with no operating system, no kernel, no client, no nothing. There are people out there that will spend 16 hours a day fucking with this just because they want to, and we need to have an environment where the person that wants to create a little USB you plug into your car computer that just turns all this shit off can do that without spending 3 to 5 years in federal prison.
Now I want to hear the talk about how somebody's trying to make a programming language run entirely off Grub or the BIOS. That's incredible.
sounds
what
like
programming
legal
did it?
defense fund kind of thing. That's the first question.
Say that again?
Oh, I just said it sounds like there needs to be more legal defense funds for people in this space.
Something like that.
And there's a serious underfunding in the privacy and open source space in general, for sure.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I mean, even before certain political changes, like I use Cubes as my daily operating system. That thing runs on 10 grand a year, and there's like 6 developers making one of the most secure operating systems on the planet. I don't understand how they. I mean, clearly they must have other jobs, but like, yeah, it's astounding. There was a phone, Divest OS. He stopped development recently, but 1 year he asked for like something similar, like 15 grand in donations, and that's all he needed to fund himself for a whole year. Like, I think he lives somewhere in Europe.
And I mean, yeah, open source burnout has been a chronic problem, especially when all of big tech depends on it, and they literally pay these overworked devs working for free pennies. Like, you know, I mean, yeah, it was actually a big topic of discussion. I went a few years ago to OpenJS World that the Linux Foundation was hosting, and yeah, you know, they're well aware of the funding is an issue because who actually also is the main source of funding for the Linux Foundation? Microsoft. You always, if you ultimately find where the money comes from, it might be through 5 intermediaries, but a lot of it does come from big tech sources. Even our heroes EFF, a lot of their donations are either big tech adjacent or they're employees who work for big tech. Like, you know, even those of us trying to be ethical in this space, the money comes from unethical sources. I don't pretend to have a magic solution.
That's what he was talking about earlier, the human element that people forget, because some of those, like, they're working for that company, but there are some individuals in a company who do care. So some of it's like the paranoid conspiracy theory, where does the money come from? But sometimes individuals in those organizations are people who are reachable or reasonable if you're, you know, communicating in like a kind or effective or thoughtful, empathetic way. Like,
Well, nobody wants to think they're the bad guy, exactly. Most people don't go to work top might be another story. I got some more questions for this. I mean, I'll keep asking questions, I just don't like going on the spotlight.
Okay, well, you had this last point at the end, you made an eloquent argument against them, but was there like a soundbite way that you made that?
What, Rich?
Was there like a soundbite version of this argument at the end of this? Like where you're talking about how these car companies are already following you around and collecting your data, in contrast with the ad that's saying, you know, stalkers are going to use it to follow you.
It was a stronger argument against Ariel.
I was just gonna say, what irritates me about that argument of like, oh, what if some bad third-party person repairing your phone abuses the data? Just go Google the term rogue employee. It's already happened from these companies. For some reason, people are okay when it's a faceless company. Never mind the fact that thousands of people have access to that data. There was another story recently that you might remember where it was the same thing. The guy bought his mom a car, and like a year later, for whatever reason, ended up requesting the data, and it had everything she had done in that car for the last year. And when he asked him basic questions like, how many employees have access to this? Like, there are so many stories of eBay is a really salient one where somebody left like a bad review, and the CEO, or not CEOs, but C-suite people were like harassing these people, sending them malicious literal physical packages in the mail, death threats, because they just said bad things about the company. Like, this is not a hypothetical situation where, oh no, what if somebody abuses that data? They're already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and even it trivializes the very real problem of stalker, where it's a whole disgusting industry that he's saying people won't outlaw, by the way. But furthermore, yeah, I mean, not just companies, like, I mean, one of the big things the Stoke revelations revealed is NSA employees were chronically stalking their ex-girlfriends using their surveillance patterns.
NYPD as well.
With regards to the soundbite element of this, I didn't point out that General Motors was wrong with this initially. When it came to that rights for repair law, I decided to focus on the individual. So if you're by yourself, like if you win, great. If you lose, it's all on you. Whereas when you have friends, the amount of that loss is kind of like divided amongst the people that you're working with. So for me to just point out General Motors or a governmental organization, it's not as effective as pointing out that the head of NHTSA, the main legal regulator in the country, for all of this, had worked at the law firm that was opposing all of this for 6 years prior to working it. Because focusing on GM or an org, it's getting divided. Focusing on you as an individual, it's more fun. But also, it's easier to get something done, and it's easier to get a turnaround in less than 1 or 2 months when I can put all that pressure on the individual who has the ability to make that decision rather than a company. Because if I put it on a company or an organization, that's going to be divided amongst the PR team of that company and everything else.
Well, you know, it's why they ultimately want corporations to be people, because there's not an actual real person having to face the consequences of what they're doing. They can hide behind this legal fiction, and oh, well, it's not the general counsel of General Motors doing this. No, it's General Motors, which isn't even a real thing.
Especially with the low quality of the car.
And I mean, I guess I'll give you a fun one, which is, you know, obviously we who believe in right to repair and believe in these arguments, we feel very strongly we're right about it. What would you, I mean, so I also want 1201 as a DMCA to be gotten rid of. It does more harm than good. But I know there are people, good faith, smart people, who actually think that yes, while that law has flaws, you know, that it genuinely helps people, helps creators and whatnot. I disagree with this. I think it helps large multinational corporations. But I guess I would sort of say, like, would you have something to clearly, some people think these laws are stopping real harms, if I would try to grant their argument. What do you think are maybe better ways we could deal with some of the harms that laws like the DMCA are purporting to try to help with, as opposed to, oh, pinky swear, you can't peek inside this thing, you aren't doing anything horrible, of course.
I think that that's the offensive end, which is I should be able to hack into my car in order to turn all this stuff off. 0.1% of the population will ever have the ability to do that, and even if they do make that tool public and say, here's exactly how to use it, it'll get about the same market share as Linux, because when I want to use a projector, it takes 20 minutes to figure out the resolution it works at. Enough people have to get aggravated at it that there is a societal shame that occurs from doing this. Like 2 or 3 lobbyists quitting after I point out something basic, that's societal shaming. That's people saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So it has to be something where if you're one of the people who programmed that baby monitor in that way, that like that you don't wanna go outside of. It can't just, because, seriously, it can't be something where you have to rely on a genius programmer or a hacker to get around it. As much as I want the freedom to be able to do that, that's important. But enough people have to understand that it's an issue to actually have it be something where when somebody takes part in this, there's some sort of shame, like they know.
Right, and I mean, I probably agree with you, right, it's not a right if you literally have to spend 20 years becoming a tech genius to actually have your right, you know, like, yeah, we all enjoy this stuff in this room, but like, there was some bill at the ledge that I was giving feedback on, and like, it wanted to do something that I thought, you know, was good, it was gonna give citizens more transparency into things that the state government was generating, but you know, one even piece of feedback I gave them is, well, if you have this portal, it's gotta be easy for the ordinary public to use, like, they just gotta have a file uploader, like asking them to check a GPG key, like, no, most people don't even know what that is, that's not a solution, so you gotta be very clear this works for everyone, not just the tech nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on like which brands do you like not buy, like what's your
Other than all of them?
What is this in DOS? It's like asterisk dot asterisk. Every company has done something. Like almost all of them have done something at some point. I try to. Yeah, it's at the point where if I wanted to, like the free market solution for me would be to become a Luddite. I have no solution. I try to if nothing is even remotely good, I'll try to buy it used just so at least I don't have the feeling that I gave you money for something like this.
What was his brother, and did he turn to the dark side, or did you talk to them and they like backed down?
I'm waiting for them to email. They actually contacted engineers, and I asked them. I said, okay, for every single one of these individual instances, can you explain each one to me? They were very nice. It's just I would just want the information.
For those out of the loop, brother was the last printer brand not engaging in the RM bullshit, and they seem to have maybe started doing that.
I'm gonna assume just like maybe it was an error, or maybe when you made this firmware you didn't think of this, that, or the other. But I sent an email like asking all these different questions, and they said they get back to me.
Some of it's just communication, like the tech people need to be good at communication, because the fact is brother follows the money. You know, once they notice that there's a real meaningful market that wants those unconnected printers, it's like, kind of like how Fender really targets the left-handed because it's an underserved, weird little demographic, and they make a lot of money doing that. By communicating like that with brother printers, you're letting them know there's actually an untapped market of people who, you know, wanna actually own their devices. So really, you're just giving them free marketing advice about a potential market that they're about to lose. You have to think about their selfishness and their goals. You're like, hey, company, you're losing your competitive advantage. We are your audience. Because if not, you know, the feeling of this, you're just like, hey, do you like money? Would you like to keep making it? Keep making your printers the way you'd like them.
Yeah, getting people understanding what their concern is rather than trying to sell them.
And to your point, part of our activism is literally getting more people to care, because it makes a big enough market who these issues are a deal breaker for them that they aren't just gonna go, oh, I could make more money by screwing people, because they'll lose more money if they chase off all of us who care about you.
I think printers should sponsor something for the EFF.
Well, they have to guarantee they're gonna stay good. They'd be happy to go in free press if they go back to being a company we've all loved for a long time.
You know, they're offering you a lifetime guarantee.
I'm different in that regard. I'll take anybody's money to lobby against them. There's this employee matching program at some companies, and I've gotten checks for $3,000 from John Deere. I'll throw that away.
Well, I mean, that even, you know, gets sometimes into the argument I've given people where like people are like, oh, I'm not gonna vote for this because it means I'm endorsing everything that platform or that candidate is. And I'm like, no, I'm not bound at all. Like, it's just a vote. I didn't actually give away any of my autonomy or rights. It doesn't mean I now morally endorsed everything they do. I voted for that because I thought it was the best choice I had, but I don't sign on to it that I agreed to anything else. So, yeah, you know, I think, actually, Corey has a very, he gave a talk a few years ago at UT, and it was kind of on this question about, like, you know, how pure do you need to be in your activism, when are you a hypocrite and when you're not, and I think he put it very well, where he was sort of like, okay, fine, you want to take the ethical stand of, like, that you're not going to buy stuff from Amazon, you think they're a bad company, but if by you not willing to buy anything from Amazon means that you're not in time able to get the supplies you need to go do your protest at the Amazon warehouse, they've already won, basically. So, you know, you don't want to be a hypocrite, you want to stand by your values, but don't be stupid about it either, basically. Don't, you know, shoot yourself in the foot unnecessarily.
I mean, even for this, I wanted to play those videos within it, and the Office doesn't play videos inside of it, and like Open Office doesn't and LibreOffice doesn't. This is Google. I feel dirty doing it, but I also wanted to be able to have a video for the presentation. So it's always like balancing things there.
Well, yeah,
Purity
it's
test.
sort of like when you're trying to do video chatting, it's like, yeah, there are things like Jitsi, but they tend not to scale if you have like 1,000 people the way a Zoom can or something, so, yeah.
If there's 1,000 people in a meeting,
Well, what meetings do break down?
Mild exaggeration.
Mild exaggeration. Let's see, and, as I said, we have the room till 9, but also if, people are running out of questions, we can always, of course, adjourn to the bar early, but does, anybody have any more questions for Lewis? By the way, as I said, if you, want to learn more about these topics, man, really, I'm not kidding, has several thousand videos on his YouTube channel, and he'll, and not just about writing repair stuff, he'll tell you how to repair a board, we've got hundreds of videos on there.
I watch YouTube, it'll rot your brain.
Well, it's not what PeerTube's for. I'm trying to think, is there any final thing on this list before we adjourn? Or does anybody else have final things? Probably not. But, I guess just what I'll say, is thank you all for coming and thank you all for caring about these issues. And really, I think it's one of the things that came out here is just, a lot of this is about shifting culture on this topic. You gotta get people to understand why this isn't just some nerd issue. This fundamentally comes down to the idea of who knows best how a technological product can serve you. It's a you. So at the end of the day, it's about trying to empower yourself and your community. And to that end, turns out there's this thing called the Legend Session right now, considering a lot of tech bills. If you want to learn more about some of the things they're talking about, I encourage you to reach out to us and get involved because they have some good ideas and some not good ideas. They need to hear from us. Oh, we got one more question.
Hi, I'm on board with EFF Austin, and I just want y'all to know that we do take donations.
She's our treasurer.
Volunteer efforts to do this, and we actually have a functioning donation link on our website now, which unfortunately has to go through like a donor box, but we don't take a whole lot of info. So we did do a South by event this past year, and if you want to know, we're going to be doing more physical in-person events over the next time period that we're living through right now, whatever hyperloop this is. So please look at the website, EFFaustin.org. It's like literally right there on the left, the picture of Mr. Rossman right there on the front too.
That is true if you go, because he's our current event. That's
Current
right.
event. So please, if you can, everything helps because we're completely volunteer driven, and I personally paid for the last EFF party because I have a day job and 3 other jobs.
Yeah, we all lose money on this, so every little bit you're gonna give us all
But even
helps.
being here is just really great, so I just wanted to.
Oh, and actually, to that end, I should also add that thanks to Heather's excellent work trying to modernize our finances, we're on Venmo. So if you wanna pay us, literally just find it. There's nothing stopping you.
Yeah.
Check your settings on Venmo, your transactions are public.
Oh yes, Venmo is a privacy nightmare, turning everything to private, do not accept the
We can
defaults.
take cash and put it directly in our bank account too, by the way.
With
a receipt.
We don't yet take Monero, we're working on it, so you have to give us old-fashioned anonymous cash for the time being.
Bitcoin may be on the way as well, so. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Heather. So anyway, we usually go get a drink at the bar. We encourage any of you to join us, chat with us. Hopefully, Lewis can stick around. You don't need to know him there. But as I said, we'll be hearing from Manson Reese of Micro.blog next month. As I also said, Ledges in session. Literally, probably going to be down there testifying on a couple of bills tomorrow. If you wanted to learn more about those efforts, get at me because some of their ideas are good, some of them are not. But you do actually have an impact when you come in and sound smart. They're looking for tech experts because with the exception of Capriglione, who actually knows what Linux is, I don't think any of the others do. So, thank you all for coming. We'll see you next month. We did that for a ledge a few sessions ago. There's a kind of a bit of technical migration right now. We're probably going to be rebuilding the website on Ghost here soon because it's kind of like a 15-year-old WordPress with so much technical debt. Even I'm getting to the point where I'm getting sick of these things. It's how you think. Yes, oh, I know. But like, everybody, I'm trying to do all kinds of
Oh, like crime scenes.
More like the first one is videos everybody does sucks, and it's not as much as possible.
Oh, I mean, I've been making videos for a couple of years. I've got like some good career now. I've come a long way. It's just mostly trying to find a show.
Oh, if anybody needs a parking map, or they park in the garage, I got it. Yeah, a few sessions ago, he had his thing. No, that's what I did. I started out just by using like, I already got it on like one audio background, so I already got it. Frankly, I'm still deciding that I have to work with camera things. Like, if I take, for instance, we're bringing out these videos, this the books on my desk. So it's like, and just to read off, like I'll put notes on my screen, read on it, and SMS calls, so I take things, that's why I like, you know what I mean, like, and then as I started to get more an idea of what are they bad, well, but as I started to get weird, but yeah, so I'm always on the lookout for it's always helpful. That was this probably all, especially as built on that guardrails that they don't talk to distribute is actually what else am I supposed to say? But that's what I describe as accounting when you're shooting the bullet account for that's the best way I can do it. I've been in the military, I get it. We're not idiots. That's probably more constitution. No, but I get it. Like, yeah, it makes sense. You have to tell people what to think. Everybody does have a decent bill that's about trying to help people more confident, but government generated assets are on it. Figure out how to plan moderate like that.
Yeah, like that's I've heard that before. Like what you're trying to say, I've heard that argument before. Just the way you put it, being able to kind of walk them through instead of just like I don't know, like your phone's like custom OS, like your phone's fine, but you shouldn't use a stock OS. Explaining all the things, like kind of leading them to that instead of just outright like here's what you should do. I need them to here's why it's bad, something should change. Here's what I recommend, but the point is now you know it's bad and you can like make up your own choices. I don't know.
I would try to.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're in Iowa, they literally have politicians give
This makes believe
15 seconds.
like hit gas pedal all the way down and just oh, you have to tell people on
well, I mean, I always think of the beautiful example.
For me, I would try to work
Diane Feinstein was, she didn't ever read a surveillance bill.
I wouldn't say I can't buy this, so
was very pro drone surveillance.
well, I can't buy this,
a drone outside her house with windows. Suddenly drones were a menace that needed to be regulated.
I can't tell them this, but if I do something wrong, they'll correct me. So I can't say fine with the chip. I just say, well, I can't do this. And then they email Rochester Electronics and they get told something along the lines of, well, we're only allowed to sell this to
I'm on the Facebook group, like, never have people like.
Then they feel it themselves, like, I planted the idea, or saying you should figure it out, I can't buy this. And then you figure it out for yourself, and then you just feel like isolated copy of the outside of the fact that they think that they're doing work.
I just think the group is like, it's an interesting group, I like to hear this thought process.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, I try to do an actual, like, free speech space where we hear diverse viewpoints, but it's still up to it's often a thin line.
Sometimes I do that, just,
Yeah,
I have a question,
I respect a lot of the community on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I just sometimes I think so much like it's just like I'm mentally exhausted.
Oh, I know.
I'm just like, non-stop sharing these people, unless you have something to do.
People will write like the longest, most
Or, like,
ridiculous
factually
scripts to see my
based,
problems
shut up,
because
so
they
talk,
said,
you know?
Well, right, exactly. Sometimes it's not about, it's like, look, I'm not violating your rights, we're trying to have a conversation.
Or even something like, I don't disagree with what you said, when we post 3 doesn't mean you're covering up the people who have actually.
Who actual content. You know, a little bit of views for a comedic point is one thing, but if that's what the conversation turns into, then
Yeah, and I'm just like, I just wanna hear if it's actual, or I wanna see pictures of someone's pet, you know?
Well, I hope it's more in person, and if you ever wanna come and talk to yourself sometime, let us know. You do. It actually has like 400 people in it. It's decent traction. Yeah. Yeah, when as I said, well, we're gonna go over to the bar in a sec. We're just migrate now. But if you gotta go, good to see you. Okay, yeah, we'll be done, yeah. Well, met McKinsey recently. Happy to meet you as well.
Yeah, I love what you guys have done.
Well,
absolutely, yeah.
Well, it's part of getting qualified is doing things you're not qualified for. Sometimes in my day job, I'm sitting here going, I'm being trusted to do all these crazy full stack file things, and I'm like, well, I've never done this piece before. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I actually didn't realize they renumbered HB 1709 is now HB 149. My initial reaction to the new bill is, it already the original had some issues that we liked your intent. To me, it seems a lot worse, the new one. The industry pressure made it even worse. Like they are only regulating government. They got rid of almost all the private industry regulations on AI, right, but then it also is like, and they made a few improvements of like, okay, so you don't have that small business carve out anymore, where, you know, it's like, okay, if you're discriminating, it doesn't matter how big or small you are. But the feeling as well that they threw in there, I'm like, oh, no, is they threw in this like AI can't be used on social media. They started doing the same like political discrimination thing with the Supreme Court struck down and we had choice, where it's like, it's unconstitutional. It's the government mandating private actors to make their editorial decisions, and that's now.
Oh, right there. Oh my God.
Get out,
That's camera.
Why is this
No. It's USB, I don't know what it is actually. It looks like USB.
It's red. Red doesn't seem like it's a good thing.
That probably just means it's off.
Yeah, but because I was watching and the sound is so
Oh yeah, the sound's terrible. That's one of the reasons I try to record the talks.
I know
so
you
then I
have.
can boost the sound later.
I know. I gotta figure this out. I'm just like trying to get over here. Let's see if I can do it.
Well, ideally, what would be nice if I could get the capture priority.
I thought that this is so delightfully vague, and then I was like,
Why is it not working?
Okay. I don't know. I think they've overall made the bill worse, especially with that thing that's just gonna get
Do I need
challenged.
to invest in
Strike it down.
No, it was
You're
just
wasting
the
everybody's
first
time.
one.
It's probably
It's
passes this, right?
Okay.
Found this violation.
I was wondering, because I see it. I know, I actually asked him, he's like, oh, I don't have time to do it.
All these substantial versus consequential language that we were debating when they were tweeted it, and that's gone entirely. Yeah, well, as I said, the bill, also they got rid of the like yearly auditing reporting requirements that just gone, because clearly this did that.
Although I did talk about it on Tuesdays, he's like, yeah, they're surprisingly sane people.
Well, that's what we'll do.
Probably. Well, I mean, if you have one, I don't know. I feel like he should have just admitted, like, hey, screw it, I'm the wrong guy.
Yeah, that's fine. I need to at least spend the money. Everybody, we're gonna go try to migrate this to the bar. Hope all you.
I don't know what to say. Anytime I have a question,
So you don't use the projector in 21 lessons. That's the only resolution.
should have seen the port things. My framework is the exact same issue on that front right. Do you have the, like, one of the older Intels?
No, this is it, right? I don't know if I'm using the old board.
Yeah, I had it on the old Intel and so it's bad.
You're like caught up with us.
I tried every resolution, never refresh it.
Even the tech legend while you weren't here.
Oh, I take 59.9, 130, 29, 37, and make every single resolution, every single one. I don't know, like, it has to be an easy idea for me, there's no way I could.